Hello and welcome to the Chapter 6 podcast. My name's Josh.
And I'm Justin.
And we're here to discuss the rhetoric of polarization. So before we get started and talking about anything else, I'd really like to give you all a solid view on what polarizing rhetoric is, so when we go on talking about this stuff, you're not confused. So would you read the definition?
The book defines it as a creation of an us versus them dichotomy with the clear distinctions between the evil other and the virtuous self. This rhetoric serves to magnify the differences between groups and minimizes differences within the group, creating a high degree of internal solidarity.
In layman's terms, what they're really talking about is the us versus them mentality. When rhetoric is polarizing, it's meant to divide so people unite. And it really is about the righteous self versus the evil other, and that you have to establish a bad guy in the situation. The book uses Earth First versus Wise Use, and those two groups are really opposed parties, where Earth First is all about environmentalism and saving the planet. Wise Use is more concerned with the people who lose their jobs because of environmental policy. This juxtaposition really does lead them to be at odds and say a lot of bad things about each other. I know you have some examples of some of the things Earth First says.
Well, Earth First is a radical environmental group best known for its ecotage, which is a sabotage done in the name of protecting nature. They were the group that Hannah talked about last week that staged the image event at Glen Canyon Dam, where they draped the black cloth down the dam to signify the cracking of it. Specifically, Earth First refers to Forest Service employees as fascist Freddies, corporate CEOs as the slugs and thugs of the industry, law officers as deputy dipshits, and politicians as pukes. In their own words, these people are corrupt, sleazy bastards with greed glands. And now Josh will talk about the rhetoric of the group Wise Use.
Wise Use was pretty much established to fight back against Earth First and all the environmental movements. And they have a few tricks up their sleeve, one of which being they like to address home folks versus institutionalized elite. And they like to describe environmentalists as pretty much overeducated college students that live in the city and have no idea what they're talking about, and they don't understand what it's like to live in the country, and Wise Use is home folks, quote unquote. They also do radical alarmists versus reasonable realists, and say that pretty much environmentalists are all doomsayers and that we just say we're all dead, and that they're trying to be a realist and be like the earth isn't dying. And they also do true believers versus pagan tree worshippers, where they try to highlight environmentalists as people who do a mixed ideology attitude towards Native American ideology mixed with pagan beliefs, and say we're not Christian, whereas they're people of God and they know what's best for the environment and they're quote unquote true believers. That was the example of the book used, but our example pertains to Google and the Environmental Investigation Agency.
In an article published on March 5th, 2013 of this year, written by Todd Pittman, entitled Google Adds Fuel to the Ivory Trade's Conservation Group Says.
So right off the bat, that's rhetorical. Google adds fuel to the ivory trade.
Yeah, basically this article goes on to say that Google has a policy of deleting any ads that contain anything related to endangered species.
The policy reads as follows. Google doesn't allow the promotion of products obtained from endangered species, which includes elephant tusks, rhino horns, and products made from whales, sharks, and dolphins.
So the problem that the Environmental Investigation Agency is bringing up is that Google is doing a poor job regulating their policies about this specific problem.
Now, from what I understand about the article, Google is trying to do this. Is Google getting flooded and they just can't maintain it, or are they just doing a bad job?
It seems like they're ignoring the problem here.
They're just looking away.
They're looking away, which is further increasing the market for the ivory trade. Google is no doubt the biggest search engine out there, so you're reaching millions of people, potentially even billions on a daily basis, further proliferating the trade of illegal ivory products.
Now, they did quote in the story, and this is from the EIA, Environmental Investigation Agency, while elephants are being mass slaughtered across Africa to produce ivory trinkets, it is shocking to discover that Google, with its massive resources, is failing to enforce its own policies designated to help protect endangered elephants. So, there was a lot of polarizing rhetoric right in that sentence, first of which was mass slaughter.
Right off the bat there, that just gives you a negative connotation of it. mean, it could be said in a nicer way.
But the choice of mass slaughter just brings up, like, just rounding up a bunch of elephants and just doing away with them. Also, ivory trinkets is really polarizing because they're pretty much calling them trinkets, like worthless baubles, like just stuff you really don't need. And they also said it's shocking that Google's doing this. That's pretty much appalling that they're taking any kind of activity in a trade that's this dark, like exotic animal trade. That's awful.
In my opinion, it's clear that the author of this article is trying to stay objective, but his views really kind of shine through in the way things are framed in this article.
He definitely sides more with the EAA, and the quotes he chose they make Google look awful.
That's for sure.
So to finish off our podcast, we have a few questions. My question is, do you think Google is really turning a blind eye to animal trade? Or do you think they're just slacking off, like not editing their browser? They are a really huge internet provider, and they can't catch everything.
And secondly, what do you think Google can do to repair their image after being associated with something as frowned upon as exotic animal trade?
And lastly, considering this chapter is about polarizing rhetoric, what kind of polarizing rhetoric could Google use to kind of strike back and defend themselves against the EIA?
All right, thanks for listening. This has been the Chapter 6 podcast with Justin
and Josh. And we guys really hope you enjoyed our podcast and learned a bunch of stuff. We'll see you Thursday for the discussion.